Today I just wanted to make a quick video to showcase some of my recent finds and explain the lack of uploads on the channel. Let's get started. So as for the lack of uploads on the channel, the main reason behind that is just that I've been very busy at the moment and haven't had much time to dedicate to vintage computers. Now that doesn't mean I haven't been getting vintage computers. I have, and I have heaps of cool video ideas, but I just really haven't had time to sit down, film a video and edit it properly. This is only for the short term though, so not long from now I'll be back to making full length videos, and it's going to be awesome since I have heaps of cool ideas and awesome hardware to cover. In the meantime, however, I figured it was worthwhile showcasing some of my recent finds as I think they're pretty interesting. So let's get right into it. As for the first find, we have a 386DX25 motherboard with a Mathco processor. This thing came out of a desktop AT case which was really rusty and in horrible shape, so I had to gut the board and throw the case away, unfortunately. As we can see, the battery has definitely not been kind to this motherboard, as there is some incredibly severe damage. Over to the bottom right hand corner we have heaps of RAM installed too, I'm guessing probably 4 or 8 megabytes. But yeah, this is a really nice motherboard overall, and it's a real shame that the battery has really eaten it up quite a lot. It might be fixable, but I'm really not hopeful it is. On to the next find, which is a lovely Sound Blaster 16. This is a real interim model between when the cards started going towards the Vibra chipsets and the original Creative branded chipsets. It feels like a later model due to the fact that there's so many small surface mount components and there isn't any real OPL3 chip, but at the same time it doesn't say Vibra anywhere. So yeah, it's a very interesting card which was of the interim. So yeah, nice find. Our next motherboard here is a bit of a Frankenstein, if I do say so myself. It's a Socket 5 with VLB. Yes, you heard me right, a Socket 5 motherboard with VLB slots. I have never seen this before until now. This motherboard came out of a really rusty AT case again, and unfortunately the battery has eaten it to all oblivion, so it's probably dead forever. But still, it's a really cool board to see, and I'm amazed that someone would have actually bought this in the 90s. Like, I can only imagine how much it would have cost because it's a very early Pentium. I'm not sure what brand or model this motherboard is either, but it looks to be of decent quality. Now, something else interesting about the Pentium 90 CPU installed in this board is that the pins actually fell off into the CPU socket right as I pulled the CPU out. I did not put force on the chip, nothing. The pins literally just fell out. So I don't know what the story with this motherboard is, but I don't think it's a very pleasant one. Onto a slightly more modern find here, a VLB 486 motherboard. It's got some pretty nice banks of cache on it, and it also has an Opti chipset, and something interesting about the board is it actually has 2 sockets. Now I'm assuming the second one is for either a Mathco or cache controller, but you don't really see that often unless it's like a really early 486 board, so to see one with VLB and a smaller socket is very interesting indeed. Actually, now that I think about it, maybe it's a 386 socket, I'm really not sure. Maybe the Opti chipset supports both, who knows. But yeah, either way, it's a nice little VLB motherboard. Now again, the battery has eaten it to all oblivion, and it's probably not fixable, but I'm gonna try with this one because it is really nice. On to our next find here, which is this lovely 486 motherboard, which only has ISA slots. And again, the battery's eaten it to all oblivion, which is such a shame. It appears to be made by Octec and is like Hippo 486 something or other, I'm pretty sure. This would have been from around 1991 or 92 because it has no VLB slots and the CPU socket is not a ZIF one. Also, that Headlands chipset looks really nice. I've not seen one like that before, and I really like the logo for some reason. It also has a lot of 30-pin memory slots, this motherboard, which means it would have been pretty high-end considering it has 8. So yeah, this is a nice motherboard overall, and it's a real shame about the battery damage. Onto another early 486 motherboard here. This one is slightly different. And again, the battery has eaten it up pretty bad, but I think this one might actually be fixable because there really isn't too much circuitry going on, so maybe I can actually fix it all. It has an Opti chipset and heaps of cache, which is always good to see, and a DX33 CPU which still has the warranty seal on it. How amazing is that? Also has an Opti chipset and just appears to be a really high-end early 486 motherboard overall. I love this era of computing. It's so interesting since it's around the time that PC actually became a good standard for games and stuff. So yeah, it's always cool to see these early motherboards. I got this 430TX motherboard too. I think it's a QDI one, but I'm not 100% sure. But it has a lovely TX chipset made by Intel and also heaps of cache and some SD RAM slots, so yeah, this would definitely be a really capable motherboard for a late Pentium era machine, so I thought it was worth chucking in here. There's nothing too special about it, but yeah. On to our last motherboard, which is this really weird OEM one. It appears to have come out of a small form factor 486, possibly an AST one considering it's made by them. Now, I didn't get the riser with this, but it does have a nice 486 CPU socket as well as an onboard video card and controller card. So theoretically speaking, you could use this 486 as is. Just install a CPU and some RAM, get a Pico power supply, and you could have an incredibly small 486 computer. That would be an interesting video, so maybe I'll see about doing just that. Onto a proper computer now, we have this lovely compact Pentium machine. It's in pretty rough shape, but still, it's not yellowed, which is always nice to see. The power button feels a bit weird, but that's alright. On the back of the system, we have this lovely VGA port, which is got a pin filled in. This is really annoying and means you need to use a special adapter just to use it. Or you can drill out the missing pin, but it's up to you. Taking a look inside of the system, as we see, it appears the previous owner has left us a new BIOS battery for the system. How nice of them. It has a Cirrus Logic chipset on the board, and we also have some weird power connector thing over there, which I just got rid of. And have a look at that, someone upgraded the RAM in 2005. It's amazing this computer was still in use then. Now, something really interesting I found about the CPU in this computer is it's actually one of those weird chip adapters where the fan power actually goes directly onto the CPU power, so there's no extra cable which you need to plug in. This is really cool to see, and I've never seen one of these in person before. So yeah, this is an awesome find. I am going to leave the chip in this system because that's where it came from and I don't really need it out of the system. But yeah, this is really cool to see. And onto our last find here, which is certainly last but not least, we have this lovely Pentium mid-tower. And check this out, it has this lovely world clock thing on the front. That's kind of funny. Now, if you remember a while ago, I got a very similar case to this one, and this appears to be the taller version, so it's always cool to have both versions, I guess. It also has a Hexspeed Creative CD-ROM drive, which is always nice to see. And looking on the inside of the PC, it appears to have an Expert chip motherboard with a Pentium 120 CPU. Something nice about this motherboard is the white ISA slots. I've never seen that before and it's really intriguing to me. It also has a 430FX chipset, which means it's probably an early motherboard from around 1996 or so. So yeah, this is definitely an interesting board. Well, that's about it for today's video. There's some of my recent finds and I think you'll find them interesting. I'll be uploading regular videos again pretty soon, within a couple of weeks or so. So be sure to stick around for that and please bear with me in the meantime. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.